at how beautiful this is. What is going on, y'all? Today, I have prepared a reflection, a feeling that I think a lot of, especially of the younger men, the ones, especially of the younger men who are converting to Orthodoxy, like myself, or have converted already, especially amongst the real traditional young men. I wonder if this feeling is shared, but the more I become Orthodox, and the more that my mindset changes in my catechesis as I get closer and closer to the Orthodox Church, and priorities for me have been shifting a lot. The more and more foreign I feel with a lot of the things I was raised with, because, and I'm from America, so in America, every other month there's a freaking holiday. But it has nothing to do with the tradition anymore. It has nothing to do with the history or the heritage or the culture, these days. Like the emphasis of, like, for example, Thanksgiving. The emphasis of Thanksgiving is never about, the actual history of Thanksgiving. And it's never about kind of maintaining an American heritage. I mean, we have all but thrown it out at this point as a culture. And that happened long before my generation was even born. The momentum of these things happened long before we were born. But the holiday itself is kept alive so that companies can sell shit. And that is kind of the jumping off point to what I'm going to say today. For starters, obviously I'm Orthodox. I filmed this video on what is Western Christmas Eve Day, right? In the Orthodox Church, we celebrate Christmas on the 7th. And we also have a completely different attitude towards Christmas than the West does. In the Orthodox Church and in Orthodox cultures, right? For example, in a lot of my Slavic friends, and the Antiochians, right, the Christian Arabs, in their cultures, they don't say necessarily Merry Christmas. They say Christ is risen, because that's what it's about. But in a lot of these more traditional cultures, it's not about the almsgiving, right? The almsgiving is not about spending thousands of dollars on stupid gifts and being stressed out about it. The almsgiving it's about the feast day. It's about, like in terms of giving to one another, everybody's contributing to the feast, And then, you might also set stuff aside as a tithe to go out and give to the homeless. This is real Christmas almsgiving. Whereas in America, it's become this, first off, it like Thanksgiving, as a nation, we have done almost everything in our power to completely abandon the actual heritage and meaning of Christmas. And we have turned it into a consumer holiday where everything's about gifts and shopping and bullshit. When in reality, that's not what it's about at all. What it's supposed to be about is Jesus. What it's supposed to be about is the birth of our King. When God became man. This is what it's supposed to be about, and it should be something that brings us together and gives us peace and joy. But because, one, as a country, right, we have for sure abandoned, if you look at our culture in our country. We have absolutely abandoned God. It's like I can never remember the name, but it's in the New Testament when Christ casts out the 2 demons and the villagers come out to him and say, "We don't want you around us." That's what our country has done with our behavior. If you look at, just moral trends within our country, what's acceptable, etc., we have basically told God we don't want him around us. And obviously that's not true for every individual, but on a cultural level, that's what we've done. Right? Now you're starting to see somewhat of a reversal of that with a bunch of youth, Gen Z in particular, converting to Orthodoxy. Glory be to God for this. We're sick of the degeneracy. but it's the more that I become Orthodox, and the less and less I care about material wealth. Like, I still work very hard. I'm a very ambitious person, but my desire for working hard has changed. I want freedom, right? And I want a family. And I want to be able to invest in the kingdom of God. In reverse order. I gave it in the reverse order of the actual priorities, right? But, I have, I go to the mall to get my suit fixed, for example, a couple weeks ago, or no, it was like a week ago, for an appointment that I need to go on. I need to get it fixed up. There was a tear. And I found myself just being absolutely repulsed by the environment of consumerism, because it's disgusting to me. Like, I don't work hard so that I can go and buy useless shit. I want to work hard so that I don't have to work for an employer that hates my guts. I want to work hard so that I don't have to be enslaved to a system that hates my principles and my beliefs as a Christian. That's the freedom that I want. I want the freedom to be able to spend time with my family when I want, how I want, for however long I want to. And in the West, it's like we work hard, right? What the prevailing culture is, you work hard so you can buy a bunch of useless shit. It's like the movie Fight Club. And I saw this in the mall the other day, and it just made me kind of sick. Like Thanksgiving, we have all but removed the actual root of the holiday from the holiday, but we've kept it around as a system, as a society, so that companies can sell more shit. Because now there's an annual obligation for everybody to buy everybody a gift. And, almsgiving is beautiful, but one, it has to come from the heart, and two, it used to come in a much more organic, actually human-centric form. The word human-centric probably has different connotations these days because of the influence of like postmodernism and whatnot, but in understanding what it means to be genuinely human in the context of Christ and Christianity. You used to give alms by participating in bringing a feast together and breaking bread with family and friends. That was giving alms. That was the gift. And you used to give alms by taking what you could and going out and finding the hungry and giving it to them. It wasn't, let me go find this, what is this person going to want? And what is this? And let me go drop hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on material shit. And I guess all of this to say is that we've lost the plot. We have wholeheartedly lost the plot. And Christmas in America, at least, I can't speak for Western Europe. I've never been. But I would imagine, given that they have a lot of trends like we do, with liberalism and wokeism and all that garbage, that they have probably done the same thing to themselves. And it's very sad. It's very sad because if you're a student of history and you don't listen to the woke propaganda BS, But if you're an actual student of history, America didn't always used to be like this. You can pull up those old pictures of like the early settlements, and you'd have villages in America of just whole families and their friends' families together. And like we had that as a country. We used to have that. And you don't even have to go back that far. You just have to go back to basically right before feminism. Go back before feminism and you have that. Now at this point, that's over 100 years ago. Before that, we largely had that. We had that super family tight-knit atmosphere. It's really just, it's just sad to see that we've lost the plot so much. And you know, I'm grateful to God that the Orthodox Church is here and it's visible to my generation of young people. You know, I think we're one of the first generations to really be, I mean, it's probably happened before in different ways, but not with the technology that we have. We're one of the first generations to really truly be sold up the river to sin, you know? And now my generation is fleeing from that. And we're trying to figure out what is right, because our parents and our parents' parents abandoned what is right. And, you know, they inherited this golden Christian tradition and they shit all over it. And then they handed us the shit platter. And now society is what it is, at least in the West. I read a stat the other day that was absolutely nuts. 1/3 of Generation Z was aborted. How can a society that slaughters 1/3 of its own children survive? Why? And as a better question, why should it survive? Why should it survive? Why does it deserve to survive if it's willing to kill 1/3 of its own children? That is disgusting. It's repulsive. And it should piss anybody off who reads it, who has any sort of moral compass at all. I guess I want to leave y'all with a picture. Well, I want to paint a picture and then leave y'all with a question. It's something I've been asking myself. I'm going to paint two pictures. The first picture is American Christmas today, the way that we do it right now. Your typical family in America probably has divorced parents. So your family's already split. So you're probably going to two houses. Maybe if the parents get along well enough, they're able to come together and have one Christmas under one roof, but now you've got two half sets of parents, maybe a couple of siblings, and then some step siblings. And, you know, mom and dad have been freaking out about spending all this money and wrapping all these gifts for the last 2 weeks. And you know, you're in your 20s now, so you're expected to go and drop a ton of money on a bunch of stupid gifts and wrap them all, even though you're young and you're trying to get your life started. And though, you know, it might not be the most money in the world, if you've got debt, you know, student debt because everybody told you to go to college, you know, that couple $100 that you're spending on Christmas gifts could really help with some of that debt payment. So, you know, this is life for a lot of, you know, early 20s to mid 20s Gen Z. And so now you all come around and you've spent basically a good chunk of your remaining paycheck after your necessities on these gifts, and you're hanging out with your broken family that, you know, because the parents were too selfish to figure out how to stick it out. I'm not going to, you know, get into possible scenarios, but they were too selfish to figure it out. And, you know, all is said and done, you guys kind of fake a smile. Everybody makes endless jokes about how they hate being around their in-laws and, you know, step family and all that. I mean, you hear it, the constant jokes. Comedians constantly joke about it. Heck, in my business networking group, people always joke about hating certain in-laws. And it's like, I get that it's a joke, but it comes from a real feeling of we have become so material that we've forgotten that the thing that actually freaking matters is the family members and friends that we love. And, you know, that's one Christmas option for you. Okay, cool, you get your nice little trinkets and shit that you might use a few times. But your family's broken. You're miserable half the damn time. You were stressed out for 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever, trying to get all the gifts together. And you're thinking about, man, I really would have preferred to use that couple $100 to pay off student debt or credit card debt or whatever. Because again, if you look at, I'm basing this off of, look at Gen Z's debt rates, look at their default rates, look at the debt per income. Like, our generation, I hope we absolutely abandon this materialistic cycle and return to tradition, right? So let me paint the other picture, the other option, the option that our ancestors got to enjoy, and the option that we as a culture, not every individual, but us as a society, the option that we have abandoned because we have kind of pushed God out. But we've kept these traditions and just allowed them to be filled with consumer slop. Your parents are still together. They may not have a perfect marriage, but they understand that marriage is a commitment before God, and they stuck it out. You've got maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, if you're lucky, siblings. Real quick pause. I managed to find myself at a random part in the trail that's blocked. So I'm going to turn around now. So you might have 6, 7, 8 siblings, all of whom you've grown up with, you've sweat, you've probably broken blood, sweat, and tears with them. You've grown together, you're very close because, your dad was a leader as is commanded by the Bible and by God and the tradition of the church, and your mother was obedient. And she led in the way that a woman leads, in the sense that she led through submission. She showed your sisters what it's like to be a good woman, and she showed you what it's like to find a good woman. So you have this beautiful family. You guys may not get along all the time. Of course you don't. You're siblings. You fight, you bicker, but you still love each other and you're close. And you're traditional Christians. So you have a very traditional grounding to our King, Jesus Christ, okay? To our God. Right? So instead of all this commercial stress, this material shit, this slop, you actually have these deep family roots, a deeply religious heritage and grounding to this beautiful holiday, the birth of our King. And now instead of stressing about getting everybody a gift, you're not worried about that. You're thinking about what your contribution to the feast is going to be, because traditionally this was celebrated as a feast day. You'd get together with everybody, friends, family, and you would break bread together. So now instead of stressing about having to spend a ton of money on bullshit slop, you would focus on, hey, what's my contribution to the feast going to be? Now that's much easier. Not only is it easier, it comes from the heart. It's not this like weird obligation of like, oh my God, I got to get all these gifts. Forgive me for using the Lord's name in vain, but it's not like, oh my gosh, I got to get all these gifts. It's like, oh, hey, you know what? I think I can make a really good this, or maybe, I can provide this. It's what can you provide, right? It's about giving from the heart. That's beautiful. And it's not consumerist slop that puts money in the pockets of companies that hate your guts and hate your religion and hate your beliefs and hate your family, that only see you as a dollar sign. It's contributing from what you have and can reasonably provide. And then whatever's left over, you guys can come together Not even just what's left over, but you can come together in preparation and set things aside to then go out as a family and give to the needy, right? And even if some of those needy are people in the family who maybe, you're going to have weaker members of the family who need to be taken care of. That's why we have families, so we can take care of one another. Now, I don't know about you, but that deeply rooted, deeply religious, right? Because this is the feast of the Nativity, the birth of our King and our God, Jesus Christ. Coming together as a family and giving from the heart instead of this commercial slop obligation with a divorced household. That sounds like heaven to me. And the beautiful thing is it's not even close to heaven. It's not even close to how heaven will be. But it's pretty darn close as far as we can get on this rock. The united family, siblings, cousins, uncles, aunts, friends, church families coming together and celebrating the birth of our King. Not feeling obligated to waste a ton of money on BS, but instead giving from the heart and contributing what they can to make something happen as a community. That, to me, I would take that any day of the week. Any day of the week. At any point, over all the trinkets and plastic bullshit and the materials and the slop that we waste our money on in the US. So let me know what you think about that. Which one do you choose? Which one do you want? The broken family with the bullshit slop gifts? Or do you want the tradition? Do you want the beauty of a united family and actually coming together and giving from the heart to provide for one another, to take care of each other, and to celebrate the birth of our King? Which do you want? I know which one I want. It's the latter. Now here's the question I have. And I've been thinking about this, because it is the temptation of every young man to want to be the hero. But the question I've been asking myself is, does the hero always have to save the place he came from, right? Like, what does it mean to literally be the hero? Can it, does that mean trying to fix the broken nation that you're born into, right? Or does that simply mean going where you can actually succeed in building that vision? Because it's not going to be the US. You won't build that here. And if you do, it will be exceedingly hard to do so. And those who will pull it off, it's rare, because the system itself does not reward traditional values here in the US. And so something I've been pondering about is like, what's the best move here? Is the best move to use the West for what it's good for at this point, make money, and then get out and go to somewhere where your traditional values and beliefs are something that are still alive and well, and a place where, hey, you know what? My country fell, but this place has not fallen yet, so I'm going to build my rock here, and I'll do whatever I can to preserve it for future generations, right? That's option one. That's like the passport bro expat option of like, I'm going to go to a country that's traditional, family-oriented, and God-fearing, right? Most importantly, God-fearing. Everything else trickles down from that. And I'm going to protect that culture. I'm going to assimilate with that, and I'm going to protect it, even if it costs my life, because I want that for my kids. And let whatever happens to America happen? Or do you try to save the place that you came from? But frankly, I don't know how to save this country. I don't know if it's possible. And moreover, this is a harsh question. I don't know if it deserves to be saved. A nation that aborts 30% of its children does it really deserve to survive? Does it deserve to, like, if we can if the whole country can repent and run back to God and correct its ways, that's beautiful. But the question is, do you want to spend your life trying to save a dying nation? Or would you rather go somewhere where the fear of God is alive and well, plant your flag there, become a part of that nation, and then do whatever you can with the gifts and energy that God gives you to protect it and preserve it? Because my generation, we didn't really have a choice. We didn't have a chance. America was sold out long before Generation Z was born, right? The men of the previous generations were a bunch of castrated cattle, and they just sold us out, with a few exceptions, a few exceptions of strong men who tried to stand up, and some that are standing up today. There's a lot of Orthodox priests who are pushing back against this degeneracy, and there is a growth of Orthodoxy, which is a sign of health, but, what, is it going to be 2050 before America is a healthy place again? Well, I'll be 50 years old. I don't want to wait till I'm 50 to start the life that I want to have. So that leaves the question of, do you go the revolutionary path and try to fix the country and correct it? Or do you say, I'm going to use the country for what it's good for, make my money, go overseas where the traditions and the fear of God is still alive and well, and I'm going to plant my flag there and build my life there so that I can start my freaking life and do the things that men are commanded to do and find women who love the duties that they were given by God. And then you can actually live that beautiful second vision that I laid out in my previous section of comparing the two options. So I'm curious, what do y'all think? Does it make someone a coward to go somewhere where the nation hasn't abandoned God? Or does it just make them smart? Because I'm leaning towards that one. I'm leaning towards work, get my money, get out, and build a life somewhere where the fear of God is alive and well. So let me know what you guys think. Thanks for hanging with me. Thanks for hearing me out. And I hope it resonated with some of y'all and maybe helped you formulate some of your thoughts. So anyways, God bless. And, despite the state of things, try to always focus on the good things. Try to focus on God. Count your blessings. Be grateful for what you do have. And then work to make it better. That's all we can do. So anyways, look forward to hearing from y'all in the comments. And for my Western friends, Merry Christmas. And on January 7th, I'll give you the real Merry Christmas with Christ is Born. All right, God bless. See you on the next one.